there's the Acme is in there. That used to be the A&P. You've got, I can't imagine why it would be Home Depot.
No, but it's closer to us. Home Depot is further away. It's about a block closer to us.
So you start with Marshall's at that end.
Yeah, okay. And then you wanted Tommy.
Walmart.
Yeah. Oh, you know, I don't have a car anymore. I have to go down here.
I'm good. I never go down there, really. Okay. Yeah, God. What's down here? I forgot. Walmart's there. Yeah, the Ocean State job lot. And we don't have to go to Frisco anymore.
I know. They sell burgers.
Yeah.
Sometimes I can run into
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
It is wonderful to be here this Sunday morning as we come together and join our hearts and minds as we worship God and as we have some time to reflect on ourselves as well. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, it is good to be here with you all, whether you have been a long-time friend or a new friend or member or someone who watches us from afar. Whenever we have an opportunity to come together, it is always a joyous opportunity. So let us begin our worship this morning by centering our hearts using the words of the call to worship found in the bulletin. Friends, God's Spirit dwells in us.
For we are God's temple,
And friends, we belong to God.
and in God we join hands with all the saints. Praise the Lord.
Our first hymn this morning is hymn number 411, Arise, Your Light is On. Friends, this day, and really every day, we have a chance to be reminded of God's love. How even in the hardest of times, even in times when we fall, God is still there. For friends, God declares to God's own beloved that you shall be holy, for I, your God, am holy. Therefore, trusting in divine mercy, we confess our faults before God and one another. Let us join in prayer. Holy God, your law shows us the way of righteousness, but we have forgotten your commandments. We have not provided for the poor or the afflicted. We have not been truthful in our daily business. We have been unjust in our judgment of others. We have not loved our neighbors as ourselves. Forgive us our sins and renew a right spirit within us. Free us to live as people who have been embraced by your light and love. Amen. Friends, this is the good news of the gospel. And it's a message that is so good, it's one that we don't really hear every day. But it's one that should give us hope. One that reminds us of what it means to turn our lives around, having received another opportunity to live as God would have us to live. Friends, God, who is just and merciful, reproves our sinful ways, offers the grace of repentance, and frees us to live as God's beloved children.
In Jesus
Christ, we are forgiven.
Thanks be to God.
I'd invite any of our younger members or friends who are visiting this morning to come up for a message or a conversation, what have you. I like your haircut. That's nice. So you could pull that off. I think I just that haircut wouldn't look good on me. You know? Yeah, it's okay. You could agree with that. So, how many have you? It would match my beard, but I don't know if I want that. I'll have to think about it. I'll take your suggestion into consideration. But how many of you have gone hiking before? Yeah. Have you ever have you gone on a walk before? Yeah, it's pretty fun, right? What are some things that you normally see when you go on a hike or a walk? Nature? Okay, well, what about in nature do you think you see?
Like trees, plants.
Trees, plants, yeah. Any animals? Have you ever seen an animal? Yeah, maybe you've heard the birds singing or making a song, yeah. Well, so there was one time, I was on a hike one time. I don't know if you would know where it was, but I was out in Colorado one time and hiking up with some friends, and we got up right to the very top of the mountain, really high up. And just as we got up to the top, the sun started to set. And do you like sunsets? Sunsets are really nice, right? Yeah. And so it was such a beautiful scene. it's something I really wanted to share with other people. So how do you think would be the best way to share something like that? If you saw something really amazing on a hike, or maybe not on a hike, if you saw something that was really amazing, how would you want to share it with someone? A story? Yeah, a story, a picture. Yeah, because most of us could probably take a picture of it because we have these devices nowadays that can do everything.
Chances are you're in a dead
What
spot.
else? What?
Chances are you're in a dead spot and can't send it.
Yeah, I might be in a dead spot, might not be able to send it. If you were artistic, how do you think you think I could share it that way? I could draw a picture maybe. Yeah. Though I usually draw stick figures, so it's not that great looking. I could write a song about it. You might have seen me play music, so I could write a song. But what's I think important is that when we find something that's amazing and something so something that really amazes us, that we want to share that with other people, whether it's a beautiful mountaintop scene or an experience that you had with friends, or on your shirt I see you have a rainbow, right? If you saw a rainbow, you might want to share that with someone. Yeah, there's a rainbow there. So in our story today, we're going to think about what it means that when we see something really amazing, what does that mean to share it with other people? Whether it's God's love, or how we experience God in nature, or in the fellowship that we have, or the fun times that we have with other people. So why don't we say a word of prayer? Can we do that? Yeah. God, we give you thanks that on this day we are able to look out and see the wonders of creation, that we are able to feel the warmth of the sun and see the blue sky and feel the earth beneath our feet. And ask that as we go about our days, that we are able to take in all these wonderful and magnificent things, and that we are able to share them with others, being reminded that it is you, O Lord, who gave them to each and every one of us. And we pray this in your most holy name. Amen. Thank you. I think you have Sunday school today. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Today's first scripture reading is from Deuteronomy, chapter 24, verses 12 through 18. If the person is poor, you shall not sleep in the garment given you as the pledge. You shall give the pledge back by sunset, so that your neighbor may sleep in the cloak and bless you. And it will be to your credit before the Lord your God. You shall not withhold the wages of poor and needy laborers, whether other Israelites or aliens who reside in your land in one of your towns. You shall pay them their wages daily before sunset, because they are poor and their livelihood depends on them. Otherwise they might cry to the Lord against you, and you would incur guilt. Parents shall not be put to death for their children, nor shall children be put to death for their parents. Only for their own crimes may persons be put to death. You shall not deprive a resident alien or an orphan of justice. You shall not take a widow's garments in pledge. Remember that you are a slave in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you from there. Therefore I command you to do this. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
It is part of the conclusion for us as we have now drawn to the end of our series on discipleship. And it transitions us now into a period of when we begin Lent. So let us hear this reading this morning that comes from the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 to 9, which can be found on page 18 in the New Testament in the Pew Bible. Listen now to God's word. 6 days later, Jesus took with him Peter and James and his brother John and led them up to a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with him. Then Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will make 3 dwellings here. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud overshadowed them, and from the cloud a voice said, "This is my Son, the Beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell to the ground and were overcome by fear. But Jesus came up and touched them, saying, "Get up, and do not be afraid." And when they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus himself alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus ordered them, "Tell no one about the vision until after the Son of Man had been raised from the dead." This is the word of the Lord.
Thank you, God.
Let us pray. God, we ask that on this day our hearts may be opened, that our minds may be opened, that as we come here bringing what is on our hearts, that they may be filled with your Spirit, that it may show us the way you intend us to live in community with one another and with you, that we may grow deeply in spirit, that we may learn to trust more deeply as we seek to be your hands and feet in the world. Amen. So this is it. This is the last Sunday where we focus primarily on the act of discipleship. And it could not have been more fitting to end with this scene that we happen to stumble upon this morning. What I always find amusing about passages like this one is that as usual, the disciples don't seem to understand, or at least appear not to understand, what is going on. When Moses and Elijah appear next to Jesus, having been cloaked with a radiant light. What happens afterward is a nod to our own response when we experience such a great revelation. And we will discover that as we dive into this passage, the problems that the disciples wrestle with are still the same problems we wrestle with and ask ourselves today. The question being, what does it mean to live as people who have been touched, people who have been transformed by the glory of the living God, who has a claim on our lives that are sealed in love? As much flack as I give the disciples, there are many things about them that we should look up to as people of faith. Things that we should look up to not because they were perfect models of faith, because by all means they were far from being perfect, but it is because of that imperfection we should look up to them. They encapsulate what it means to truly wrestle with questions regarding faith and what it means to live as people who have been touched by the transforming love of God. Unfortunately, it doesn't take much for us to see the many ways, the oh so many ways in which we have failed to live as people who have been exposed to such life-altering love. The creation that God has called us to care for has been poisoned. The bonds that were supposed to unite us have been shaken by hate-filled and fear-filled ideologies. And the desire for profit over compassion has corrupted the sacredness of the table, where we break bread and share the cup without asking for anything in return. It's enough to make us stop and ask whether we can still feel, still see, still experience the glory of God in our midst. That is why it is so essential for us to go up to the mountain. To go up to the mountain like the disciples. It's an opportunity for us to get away from the busyness, to get away from the chaos, to get away from the hurt of the world. It's not a running away, it's not retreating, but it is taking the time we need to be reminded of how God's glory still shines through even the darkest of days. And it may be in that moment on the mountain, during our mountaintop retreat, where the demands and the teachings of Jesus sink in, and we begin to process them, and our hearts begin to change. But in order for us to hear Jesus, and I mean really hear Jesus, not with hands and ears slightly muted, or trying to hum or sing a tune over the top of what Jesus is telling us, our hearts need to be aligned with what Jesus is telling us. It's something that we have been emphasizing throughout this whole series of what it means to be disciples, to be truly the hands and the feet of God. And this reminder is once again reinforced by a voice that booms out from the heavens that this is my Son, the Beloved, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. And this is where things get complicated, right? Because living out the teachings of Jesus, things that are meant to alter how we live our daily lives, means that we have to change what is at our core. That we have to change and reassess the priorities that we have set in our own hearts. It means that we cannot think of ourselves as individual units that are only concerned about ourselves, but as people who are intricately connected with everyone and everything that God has created. Irenaeus, an early Christian theologian, once said that the glory of God is in the one who is living. What does it mean? What does it look like for the glory of God to be in us as people who live? Because if our lives do not reflect the glory, the radically transforming glory of God, then what are we doing? We cannot try and engineer our own solution by ignoring the calling that God has given us. We cannot ignore the plank in our own eye and obsess over the speck that is in someone else's eye. Because it's only when we hear, when we embrace and act on God's transforming love and justice, that we become people who are truly living. It's then that we become people who are alive, living, who reflect the glory of God. It might be helpful then to think of ourselves, I think as Alan had pointed out to me one morning, that we are more like mirrors that reflect the glory of God. There was a meme that I saw this past week on one of my clergy groups on social media that had the caption that read something like, if we are created in the image of God, does that mean we are all God's selfies? It's funny to think of ourselves as God's selfies, but there's truth to what is being said there. Our ability to love without borders, our ability to give without expectations, is not something of our own doing, but by the grace and the power that flows oh so freely from the throne of God. And it is not something that can be contained in one experience, one moment. As Peter learns, after he suggests that they try and build a monument to preserve it, that monument for Jesus, Elijah, and Moses. Because as Jesus converses with these two pillars of tradition, showing how Jesus is carrying on their work, we are reminded of how God has worked through the lives of a multitude of women and men who have learned that satisfaction is not gained through earthly pursuits, earthly treasures, but by carrying out God's love, God's justice, and God's reconciliation. As we end this series on discipleship with a reflection of what it means to be transformed, to be people who have been transformed, people who have been touched by God's life-altering love, we have a chance to pursue that mountaintop moment of clarity as we enter into the season of Lent. During the season of Lent, in which we are in a time of introspection, a time of reflection, may we be challenged by the words and the teachings of Jesus that we hear this morning, so that by the time we come out of our introspection, we are ready to tackle the hard work that Jesus asks of us. Because we are not people of just this time, or of this country, or of this certain place, but we are people who have been called to be something so much more. So how are you going to let your life, your love, your actions, your energy be a reflection of the transformative love of God? Because by taking this question to heart, perhaps we can strive to be better members of the community, showing our love for one another, creating a space for voices that have long been silenced. Perhaps we can care for this wonderfully and beautifully created world, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it was never ours to begin with. Because if we remember all the way back in Genesis, we were charged to be caretakers of this amazing gift. Perhaps if we reflect on this question of what it means to be transformed, we can go and be generous with how we use our time, our talents, our passions for caring for other people, whether it be here in our own church or in our community or wherever else, because our skills were meant to be shared. Perhaps we can continue to use and find new ways to use our facilities, our own space, to be a place where people from all walks of life, of all backgrounds, of all economic statuses, no matter really of anyone's life story, can find a place to grow, whether it be in one of our own services or community programs that share this sacred space. Because if we live like people who have been transformed, if we find that we open our hearts just enough to let that love in, and if we are willing to take on the hard work, and that is something we need to ask ourselves, then we will discover, we will find that we have become more accurate, a true, genuine reflection of the light and the glory that comes from God. In doing these things, we live out a belief that faith is not for ourselves, that God is not ours and ours alone. We must be receptive to the reforming, the reshaping power of God's claim on our lives. And in doing so, our inward and outward change will impact others, allowing us to love more deeply, trust more deeply. This act of transformation, the transfiguration, this act of faith is something that is communal. Love is communal. And embodying these things, we will tell the world that our hearts that were created in the image of God have been transformed as well, so that it may be of benefit to all of humankind. Our next hymn this morning is hymn number 324, Open My Eyes That I Can See. moment now to extend to one another the peace of our Lord Jesus Christ, saying, peace be with you.
And also with you.
Well, we are at a moment in our service where we are able to share any joys or concerns or things that we would like to lift up in prayer this morning. So are there any joys or concerns that are on anyone's hearts? Rosemary.
My next door neighbor, Elise, was taken to the hospital by ambulance yesterday.
Catherine.
So I have a joy, a miracle actually. So our friend Beth, who was having palliative care for breast cancer, posted that she had a PET scan and shows no evidence of active disease. I also want us to continue to pray for our country.
Joy, we got to celebrate Lily's birthday with her yesterday. She did me.
Let us join. Almighty God, on this day, as we have heard before, we give you thanks that we are able to have the chance to wake up again, to take in a breath of air, and feel the sun beat down on our faces. We give you thanks, O Lord, that we are able to be reminded in the ways in which you move, in the ways in which you allow us to continue to have our being as well, to be reflections of your love, to be reflections of your compassion, as we strive to be your hands and feet in the world. God, on this day, we give you thanks for so many things, whether it be creation or the opportunity we have for fellowship, the times that we spend with one another. We give you thanks for so many things that are on our hearts this morning, things that you know that we are thankful for. Lord, we lift up on this day as we remember how we are so intricately connected and celebrate this gift of community. We lift up, O Lord, thanks that we could celebrate Lily's birthday as she turned 3. Lord, we lift up prayers for healing for Elise, who's taken by ambulance. We give you thanks, O Lord, for Beth and her very good news. God, we lift up also those who we carry in the silence of our hearts, and those, O Lord, who are mentioned in our bulletin. So we commit now a moment of silence to lift up those things that are on our hearts. Oh God, may we never forget the many ways in which you still hear us, when we cry out to you, when we seek your help in times of trouble. And God, on this day, we lift up prayers for all those who help to lead us, those who help to guide us, whether it be in our local county or town or state or government, those who help lead on the world stage. God, we lift up those who help to serve and protect us, those who allow us to live safely where we are. God, we lift up all those who help to teach and promote the health and well-being of future generations to come, and many gifts and talents that they have to share as well. God, on this day, may we remember the ways in which we have been blessed, as we remember that we have been blessed so that we may be a blessing to others. God, as we remember how we are pilgrims on this journey of life and faith, may we join still with the saints of those who have come before us, as we say the prayer that your Son, Jesus Christ, taught us to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Are there any announcements that people have that they would like to share? Sue.
I just would like to say to everybody, Saturday, March 28th, we would like to host a fundraiser. It's going to be an English tea lunch here in the library from 12:30 to 3 with pots of tea and English china and flowers and all kinds of cute things. So if you are interested in coming to something like that, we would encourage you to invite your moms, your aunts, your sisters, cousins, your friends, or brothers, or men, or whatever, to come. Please look on your calendars when you get home, see if you are available that day, and if you'd like to come. We will put up further information next week. I'll have a poster in the library, which is where the tea will be, and it should be something very nice, an afternoon on a Saturday where you can sit and relax and have some delicious food and nice tea and sit and chat with your friends and family. Thanks.
Thanks, Sue. So I have a few announcements, I guess. So this Wednesday, as I mentioned, we begin Lent. And so I will be in the church parking lot from 6:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock to distribute, actually for anyone who may be passing by our church on the way to work and who would like to receive the traditional ash cross and a blessing and a prayer for today. And then also later on that evening, then here at the church in the sanctuary at 7 o'clock, we have our more traditional Ash Wednesday service as well. In addition, and also Thursdays, we always have Bible study at the manse, and it's always great to hear. Alan was just talking to me about how he was picking up on some things in the passage this morning that we've been going over in the Bible study. So it may enrich your own experience on Sunday as well. And then the last announcement I have is that on March 15th, we'll have a guest once again. Deb Carrick, who's our presbyter, will be joining us in worship. You might remember that earlier on this year she was going to come, but both of her parents had passed away. So March 15th, that second Sunday in March, we will welcome her here as she worships with us. Are there any?
I'll be doing a corned beef and cabbage and stuff at Minnie's.
What is that? If you're interested in Girl Scout cookies, Sam can hook you up. So, if there are no other announcements, then as we head into our time of offering, I would like us to not only reflect on the gifts and the talents that we have received as we offer a portion of it back to God, but I would like us to also perhaps spend some time in prayer, giving thanks for the many ways in which our church has continued to touch the lives of people here in our community, and to lift up in prayer those new insights and new paths that we feel that God is leading us to. So as we enter into a time of offering, may we reflect on these things. Those many things that you know, Lord, help us get through the day and to be a witness of your love and your glory. And we ask that as we give a portion of them back to you, whether it be our time, our devotion, our prayers, that they may be used, Lord, to continue to further the work of your Son and all those whom you have called to be your hands and feet. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen. Would you please join me for our final hymn this morning, Lord, you give the Great Commission, which is hymn number 424. out into the world with your love, your gifts, your talents, as we seek to lift life abundantly. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you now and forevermore. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Friends, go in peace, and as always, you're more than welcome to join us for a coffee and fellowship afterwards in the library right behind you. Oh, you have a transformer. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good morning, too.
So you're going to go or are you going to stay? I'm going to
It was just like, I call it an active version. Current has a QR code. PayPal. Put that on the back out, so it's off. I'll resend it. But, yeah, but that's why I was saying, I'm trying to do a lot of reactive. No, I'm not saying that's not true.
So the idea is like every week you would, so we would replenish the cars and fuse constantly, I guess. Like we do a lot of.
Well, I was thinking if we can make them and then just like leave them or something like that, because then that way we're not going to do something.
Okay, so my vision was different than that.
Okay.
So I thought that you were saying like every week the plate would go around and could do traditional monetary offering, but if for whatever reason you wanted to do that, and we like we would take these cars and put non-monetary on it and kind of like pledge that into the.
No, yeah, so mine was more like, I voted, But anyway, I was thinking more of being something more.
So because it's not a steady area,
I think it's nice to make it so that you can add something.
Well, and that was the tall campus is on the back that it allows you to.
am I going to be allowed
So
to?
it's just the act, you know, getting people, even if you don't, they bring the act. But that's something that,
Because when you get things delivered, it is.
I guess you might.
I think it was,
Well, I
didn't forget.
didn't want to make you do it if you weren't sure.
Well, that's what I was more concerned about, just like, feel like,
I'll see you later.
Okay.
but, no, I can.
Okay, well, I